All right, let's get started. So this is a presentation about the best career in cybersecurity, and I will argue with anyone about that. At least it is for me. The thing about a qualified security assessor is that you get to combine a knowledge of technology and security with getting to work with people, different people all the time. So it makes it really interesting. You're not going to the same place every day for work. You're not seeing the same people every day for work. There's always something new, and so it's very interesting. So I'm glad that you're here with me. If you have questions as we go through this, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on that. But at the end, we'll definitely have time for some Q&A. I mostly put all of the positive things in the presentation, but if you have questions about maybe some of the more challenging parts of this job or some of the things that different people might find difficult, we can definitely talk about that at the end. But I'm going to stay on the positive notes for the purposes of the presentation. I hope you enjoy it. All right. So to get on the career, I should tell you about me first. So I forget to do this all the time. I have a master's degree in computer information systems, but my undergraduate degree is in animal science. So I also have the CISSP and the CISA. I'm one of Security Metrics' principal security analysts. I look at security metrics as employment as a service. So when in any job that I've had, when I have a lot of flexibility and a lot of control over what I do and what I make, I'm the happiest. And this is the kind of job that allows you to do those things. So I work for Security Metrics. I was in IT for a lot of years before then, had a lot of jobs that frankly I hated. So there's a lot that you can do in this industry that's great and not so great. And it all serves towards learning and growing and getting what you actually want to be in the end. I assess security, and then I take the security and then I compare it to a standard like PCI or HIPAA or one of those things. As a security analyst, I never start with what is the standard of compliance that I have to assess against, because if you don't have security, what have you got? I also do the Security Metrics podcast. So if you like hearing from me today, search that out. We have a lot of fun. I have some amazing guests that come on my podcast, and I think you'll enjoy it. I also have the Hair to Tech podcast with my co-host Amber Pearson, who happens to be listening today and has been frequenting some booths. So that's kind of a fun one. All right. So the contents of this are: what is a QSA, how to become a QSA, and then it's going to feel a little overwhelming at a point, but that's okay, because there are intermediate steps. I'll tell you all about the intermediate steps, and then I'll tell you some other things that might be important to the career. So we'll go through all of that, and you'll get a really good idea of how to get this job, and hopefully you also will understand why you want this job by the time we get through it. So what is a QSA? There are a lot of security assessors, and as I mentioned a minute ago, PCI is not the only type of assessment that I perform. And in some organizations, if you become a QSA, that's all you'll do will be PCI. But in most organizations, there's a lot of room for flexibility on that, where you can also assess against HIPAA, against SOC audits. You could possibly do, CIS is a real common one, and NIST. Some of these standards, again, if you know security, if you know technology, it doesn't take a lot to read exactly what the standard says and say, how does this apply in the case of this standard? But for today, we're going to talk about PCI QSA. And the reason that I wanted to focus on it is because it's internationally recognized. There is a lot of work out there for people who choose to be a QSA. It follows a standard approach, very similar to any other type of qualification, assessor qualification that you might want to get. Follows a pretty good standard, so you can apply that in general to other things you might be interested in. So it's more than just getting locked into payment card industry security. Basically, PCI is about keeping credit card cardholder data safe, and it's a lot more fun than it sounds at the beginning. You know, sometimes people say, what do you do? And if I don't want to talk to them, I say I'm an auditor. And then they stop talking to me, and it's fine. but sometimes if people start talking to me and say, what do you do? I get to talk about cybersecurity, and that cybersecurity angle is where I really get jazzed up about this job. And I think anybody interested in cybersecurity will find that exciting as well. So why would you want to do this job? Again, the flexibility is tremendous. So depending on the company that you work for, some of the larger companies have it very regimented. This person goes on site and looks at these things. This person writes the report. This person does the QA, and it's like that. I mean, if you like that, fine, go and find one of those jobs. But most smaller PCI QSA organizations, you kind of have to wear a lot of hats. And that means in order to do the work, you have to be given a lot of flexibility and independence in how you choose to take on the work. So basically, it's like you have this goal that you need to achieve, which is this organization wants to be PCI compliant. Are they? If they're not, how do they get there? You write up these reports, and honestly, the report writing, some people hate it, but I kind of like that part because you can have something cheesy like Buffy the Vampire Slayer going in the background or whatever. It's not as big of a drag as it might seem writing reports. It's not bad. So flexibility, independence, you can do it remotely. A lot of people do it 100% remote. Security Metrics does not. I have an office. I'm sitting in the office right now. I can see the mountains. So it kind of depends on the company that you want to work for, whether it's going to be fully remote or not. The other great thing is right now, I have one customer who has AWS, Azure, and Data Colo, and they've got card data flows in all of those. And they all have to be assessed. And the technical puzzle to knowing all of those environments and what can affect the security of those environments, that appeals a lot to me. So, and then I have other customers that may only be in AWS or might only be in Azure. They might, there are various places where you never know really, because you never get enough information ahead of time till you start digging in. And then you get told by the customer, how are you solving these technical problems that you need to solve? What is the security that relates to these technical problems? And then you get to learn about how everybody does all of the things. So it's pretty darn cool. So then it does have a great salary. And then the travel. So I was up really late last night because I got this wild idea that I was like, I'm going to put pictures of not every place I've been at. That'd be crazy, but a lot of the places I've been into here so that you can get excited about, oh, you really can go visit the Taj Mahal because you have a customer over there. I could never afford to go to these places if I were paying for travel myself. I have way too many adult kids. So the travel is amazing if you take advantage of it. So that's why all the pictures are in here, because I want you guys to consider this as a job and get excited about it. Okay, so how do you become a QSA? The steps and qualifications are very clearly laid out. You can download from the PCI Security Standards.org website all of the information on this. And I have links to everything that I mentioned in this presentation at the end. So you'll be able to get those. I'll post this whole thing up on LinkedIn as soon as we're done. It'll be easy to access. You'll be able to get whatever information you need at that point. So first things first, you have to pass a background check. And as a QSA, you have to do that every year. I don't know why I get worried about it every year, but I do. I'm like, oh, it's background check time. Maybe I committed a felony this year that I forgot about. Stupid anxieties we get as humans. But you have to pass a background check. And then this is like, seems like a throwaway line, but it's really important. Possess knowledge and experience to conduct technically complex security assessments. So this is the first time I'm going to say, if you want this job, learn technology, learn security, get educated, get the information you need. Take the jobs that may not be as fun so that you get the knowledge you need to be really good at this job. So you also need to possess a minimum of 1 year of experience in each of these: application security, information system security, network security. So 1 year in each of these. Now, I'm not going to really dig in and focus on this right now because there are some later things that will totally take care of this for you if you have them, and you have to have them. So knowing about these things is important. I'm going to tell you why. If you know network security, you're going to understand how to scope the environment that you're looking at. And a lot of times people say, well, what is scope? What does scoping mean in terms of a security assessment? What it means is if you're assessing an environment and anything could in any way affect the security of that environment, it's in scope. How do you know that? Well, let's say you have one environment here and one environment here, and they can talk to each other. Anytime you have environments that can talk to each other, that kind of falls under network security, and you're going to need to know that to be able to know how that security can affect it so you can assess the security controls that are in place. So you can see why it makes sense that the council would want you to know these 3 different ideas. It's going to feed into whether or not you can assess the security of that organization. All right, here's the next one. I hated this one because I'm focused on the security and the technology, not so much on the audit. Don't tell my boss. But possess a minimum of 1 year of experience in each of the following audit or assessment disciplines: IT security auditing, information security risk assessment, or risk management. These are important. Sometimes they feel a little pedantic to me, and that's why I don't like them as much. But they're a necessary part. You need to know them to be able to be good at this job, okay? So you have to know those things in order to be a QSA, and then you kind of have to know what the standard is. This is not a big deal because if you get hired by a QSA company because of your security knowledge, they're going to send you to training. And this training will tell you what the PCI is. And at the end of the training, you take an exam. And if you're a security analyst, the exam, it's really not that big a deal. It's very hard to fail it. And then you just retake the exam every year, make sure that you still have the knowledge. So it's an annual training, annual exam. You need to adhere to a code of ethics that you actually sign to. I will be behaving these ways. And I think that's important as an auditor because you have such an ability to affect your customers' security if you don't do things in the right way or with the right intent. But I think it's good to have a code of ethics. And then you have to be an employee of a QSA company. So sometimes people say, well, can I just be a QSA and then get hired? Nope, it's not how it works. But what you do is you say, I have the security background, I have the audit background, and a QSA company will say, you are hired, when can you start? There is a shortage of QSAs, and companies tend to poach each other. I get headhunted all the time. So you can expect this to be a really good path for you if you're prepared and have the qualifications to fill this position. All right. So then we remember where a minute ago I said, don't worry about whether you're going to fulfill these because there's a later thing that's going to kind of really cover all of these. This is that section. So in addition to what I just talked about, in order to be a QSA, you have to have something from list A, something from list B. List A is the security, list B is the audit. I'm going to talk about the 2 that I got because they are, first of all, the most common, at least here in the US where I am. These are most common. Where you are, something else might be more common. You might have it for another reason. And so certainly don't duplicate your effort. Start with what you've got and then go from there. I chose to get the CISSP and the CISA. If you don't have a security certification, the CISSP it's kind of the gold standard. And once you start searching about it, you're going to see some negative comments about it. So I want you to be prepared about that. People say, oh, the CISSP isn't all that great. Well, yeah, that's like everybody attacks the gorilla, right? Everybody is wants to take down the big guy because for reasons, we're humans, right? CISSP is like that. If you need a job that requires the CISSP, get the CISSP. And this job does it. If you don't need it for your job, dang, it's a hard test. I studied for it for about 4 weeks. And then I took it. I don't know if it's still the same length as it was. It was a 6-hour exam back then. I have ADD, so I did not take the 6 hours, but a lot of people do. So you need to prepare yourself for that potentiality. The second test is CISA. This one is hard for different reasons. The CISA is remember how I mentioned being pedantic? If you want to pass the CISA, you just need to think of the most bureaucratic, technically correct answer you can. Don't think about solving the problem that the person has. Think about being an auditor and not solving their problems, and then you'll pass the CISA. And I'm only half joking. Okay, so moving on to, if CISSP is the one that you want to earn, we also have some very clear guidance on how to earn it. And again, I have the link to how to earn this at the very end of this. And shortcuts, don't get discouraged. The shortcuts on what are intermediate steps do come after how to earn the CISSP and how to earn the CISA. So if you'll stick with me, I'll get you to some of the shortcuts and tips there. All right, so how do you earn the CISSP? You have to have at least 5 years of cumulative paid full-time work experience in 2 or more of the 8 domains. So I want you to look at these 8 domains and ask yourself right now, have you worked full-time or part-time or been a paid intern or been an unpaid intern for someone that's willing to give you documentation? Any of those fulfilling these things. Here's the other thing that I see, especially, not to genderize it, but especially fellow women. We'll look at something and go, I can't say I do that unless I am the best at it. I can't say that I have that experience unless I did the senior or lead position. And that's nonsense. Look at these things and ask yourself, in your job today or in any kind of past job, kind of recent though, did you do any kind of asset security? Well, what does asset security mean? It is a broad range of things, right? You have, if you ever did asset management and then checked and made sure that patching was done on that, that's part of asset security. It's also part of security operations. See how there's crossover? So if you did a year managing patching for an organization, that fits a couple of things here. You don't have to have a year in asset security and then a year in security operations. We're talking 5 years in something related to each of these, right? So take a second right now, and if you have something that you can take notes in or write it down, I'm going to give you a second. I want you to write down one thing that you have 1 year of experience in security and risk management. Did you participate in a group that did risk management or risk assessments in your company? Were you like part of meetings where, hey, we need to do risk assessment on this product. We need to do a risk assessment for our whole company. We need to do a risk assessment for our department. I want you to start thinking broadly about what does risk assessment mean? And then were you part of the group that applied risk remediation, right? So if you start thinking about it in terms of small chunks of work that you actually did, I don't care what your title was. We all know titles are nonsense, you guys. What was the work that you did? And how does it fall under this? Asset security. Security architecture and engineering. Were you part of a DevOps team? Were you part of a junior DevOps team? Were you part of the QA team that checked their work? A lot of times we overlook the QA team, but the QA team is uniquely situated to find security holes. As a matter of fact, this is kind of soapboxy, so I probably shouldn't go like squirrel off about this, but if you're part of the QA team and they're not including you on the security side of things, they're missing out, because QA should be part of security every single time. So identity and access management. Are you part of the authorization queue to, hey, we have a new person that wants to be part of this team? Are they allowed to based on their role? Have you managed Active Directory in some way or other access management systems? So have you written something down yet? Go write something down, because it seems like a lot until you start putting pen to paper and figuring out, what have I done that fits into these checkboxes? That's all they are. It's just figuring out where you fit that. Okay? Don't repeat work. Leverage what you've already got. Okay, moving on. So, other ways to earn experience. I kind of mentioned this. Part-time work. It accrues at a lower rate, and all of those details will be on at the link where I showed you. But part-time work is valuable too. So are internships, paid or unpaid. So it's just a matter of how do you quantify for this board of assessors what you know, what you can do. Get creative with it. Here's some other ways to earn experience. This is, I hate this list so much. It's terrifying to even try and read, but you can get a 4-year college degree, satisfies a year experience, or you can get a credential on this approved list. One of the ones on this approved list that I really liked was, I have to look at the big screen because this is way too small, CompTIA Security Plus. A lot of people I know start with Security Plus because they're interested in getting into security. It's a very good entry-level exam. If you are in a sort of security-related role or want to be, go to your company and ask them to pay for this. Ask them to pay for your Security Plus. A lot of times there's already budget, but if you are working your behind off for them, doing good things, it's pretty hard for them to deny your request for a certification because it benefits you, it benefits them, brings that knowledge into their organization, and it gets you a year closer to being a QSA, right? Getting your CISSP. So think about possibly getting that and see if your company will pay for it. Honestly, anything your company will pay for it on this path, at least ask for it, kind of lobby for it. See if there's somebody who is on your side in the money side of things in your organization. That way you get to move forward, but it's not going to be the financial burden that it might be otherwise. All right. And then you get to take the exam. Some of us are really good exam takers. Some of us are not. I have a colleague who is one of the best assessors that we have, who took the exam, CISSP exam, 3 times before he passed. And it was not because he's not smart. It was not because he doesn't know technology. It's because tests are really hard for him. And so when we look at ourselves, if you feel like this exam is going to be too hard for you, I'm here to tell you it is not. You can do this exam. And the way you know that you can pass it is study, 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 right? You have to know the information. And it's not the same thing as knowing information that you know because of the work that you do, or the blogs that you read, or the YouTube that there's a lot of ways we gain information. The CISSP information is book knowledge that is security knowledge adjacent. I don't even know. It's like you're not going to use most of what you learn in that book, in that test, and apply it to being an assessor. But it's a way of demonstrating you know how to learn knowledge, I guess. So learn the language that they ask questions in. It's very tricky. It's very different. And use the digital practice exams, because that way you'll go in and you know the information, but you'll see it digitally. The way they write it is sometimes weird. So get the digital bank of questions and then go over that until you can not just pass the test, but until you can knock that test out of the park and then go take the test. It's too expensive to take more than once if you don't have to, okay? So next thing is, after the exam, you get endorsed. What does that mean? Well, somebody else who has the CISSP needs to say, yeah, this person actually knows what they're talking about, and I will sign the paper that says that they do. If you're kind of isolated and you don't know any CISSPs and you don't know who to ask to help you get endorsed, the CISSP, the ISC squared has a way to endorse you from their side. So don't panic if you don't know anybody. And then you just keep current on your CPEs, because you don't have to take the test again. And CPEs, if you're unfamiliar with them, it's just a way of attending conferences like this, listening to podcasts, reading blogs, keeping your information current, and then telling the ISC squared organization about it, so you earn your CPEs to keep that CISSP current year on year. And of course, there's fees. Everybody wants a piece of my money. Okay, so then we've talked about the CISSP, which is the security. And of course, I mentioned earlier, there are other security certifications you can get, but that's the one I actually recommend it because if you look at other jobs that are require the CISSP, you can get some pretty high paying jobs that involve that. Then for the QSA, earn the CISA. This is the audit side of the house. Okay, you need both a security and audit in order to be a QSA. So similar, see how it's kind of structured even similar to the way the CISSP certification is? You need a minimum of 5 years of professional information systems auditing, control, or security work. So, and it has to be under these specific domains. Now, this doesn't mean you have to have 5 years of CISSP work plus 5 years, and then you get 10 years. Although, I mean, the more experience you have, the better you're going to be at this job. But still, if you want to shortcut it, there are a lot of things here that get satisfied by a lot of the same things that the CISSP is satisfied by. And if you have these two, the QSA requirements are completely satisfied. All right, so think of it again, protection of information assets. That sounds like a big, scary deal. But if you have ever been involved in patching systems for an organization, then you've done that. That's part of that, right? So think about what is your current job? How does it fall under governance and management of IT? Does this mean you have to be a manager? Does it mean you have to be on the governing board? Doesn't. It doesn't. It means you have to be involved in that process of governance. In other words, what is the change control process for putting something into place? What is the acceptance process for saying we have changed something? Is this good? Do we accept it? Have you been part of a group that has to look at penetration test results and then fix them? Are you part of a group that has had to explain penetration test results to somebody on the business side? Are you on the business side and have had to understand the results of the penetration test and decide what to do about it? Right? So there are all ways that you can take your current knowledge and slot it into these requirements. So I want you to think, just like we did with the CISSP, think for a minute. What do you do currently? What have you done recently that could satisfy one of these job practice areas? Hope you're writing it down. It'd be really cool if I could see you doing that. Can't see anybody, but. So again, just like the CISSP, there are substitutions and waivers. And you can get a maximum of 3 years. CISSP only gave you like 1 year of waiver. CISA gives you 3 years of potential. Max information systems that's not related to IT or security, which I would argue all information systems work is related in some way to security, but whatever. And then, or if you've been an auditor, but you haven't audited information systems, you can count that for a year. You can get a master's degree, count that for a year. You can get a waiver for being an instructor, right? So up to 2 years. So there are different ways. Again, the links are at the end. You'll be able to go review that really, really in detail. All right. So here's the part where I know it feels overwhelming to get to where you need to be, to take the exams, to get the certifications, to become a QSA. But I promise you, I was sitting on the beach in Cebu in the Philippines thinking, if I had known this job was as cool as it is, I'd have pushed everything in this direction to become a QSA far sooner in my career. Totally worth it. And here's some intermediate steps to get you there. All right, the associate QSA, or AQSA, we call it. The associate QSA, very similar in a lot of ways. You have to have a background check. You can have a university, so you can get this right out of college without any experience, or you can have a couple years experience in InfoSec or IT. A lot of us, especially people who have come from the IT realm like I did, IT operations, DevOps, all of that, kind of shortchange ourselves in terms of do we know security? And again, especially if we're women and think we have to be perfect before we think we can qualify for something, get that out of your head. You qualify for it. If you meet part of it, if you meet the intent of it, I believe in your ability to qualify for these things. Just need to get creative in your understanding of yourself. So InfoSec is IT and vice versa. And I mean, that's probably a whole different conversation. All right, so you have to attend the employee training. And again, it's not hard. And then ethics, and then be an employee of a QSA company. So if you think you're getting close to the hours that you need in order to qualify for the CISSP, in order to qualify for the CISA, and in order to qualify for the QSA, but you're not there yet, but this is the dream job and you want to focus on it, find a company that supports the AQSA program, reach out to them, tell them where you're at, tell them what you want to do, present to them the information that you have and your plan for achieving the QSA and your timeline. If you do the homework on this, you totally will get hired, okay? So you can get this associate QSA program, and then as you get your CISSP certification, as you get your CISA certification, and you get the remaining years left that you need as an AQSA, then you get to be transformed into the QSA. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of organizations that let the AQSAs do a lot of the travel and the interesting parts and the talking to customers. Not all of them do. Some of them you're kind of going to get crappy jobs that you're not going to like. But for a lot of, especially these smaller organizations, the AQSAs also have to wear a lot of hats. So it'll give you that boost towards really being great at this job while having the guardrails of a mentor actively in that company who wants you to transition from AQSA to QSA. So you can find the organizations that support the AQSA program on the PCI website. I don't work for them or anything. I just think it's a great job. So I'm trying to give you the insider information. It's on there. You can go find out the AQSAs, or if there is a QSA company near you, a company that you just want to work for, reach out, find out if they support this program, and they might be able to find a slot for you that will work for you and help you work towards this with a mentor on site. Super awesome. Okay. So both CISSP and CISA have this test before experience program. The test before experience program is where you're like, okay, I'm going to get all the book knowledge, but I don't have all of the years that I need to apply to it. But if you can pass both of those tests, again, you've got that. You take that to an AQSA supporting company and say, I got my CISSP, but it won't be confirmed until I get the years of experience. I got my CISA, won't be confirmed until I get these years of experience. You need me in your AQSA program, right? And they'll say, heck yeah, we do. And they'll bring you in, they'll give you those years of experience in work, and then you'll become a QSA. So you see how there are ways forward based on even small amounts of experience and a willingness to really go after those tests and get them. You can reach that QSA position in ways that are shorter than you might think at this time. Okay. All right. Here is the hardest thing for most people. I'm not just talking women. I'm talking most people. I am the only woman on I don't even know how many, we have at least 25, I think we might be 28 now, auditors on our team here at Security Metrics. I'm the only woman. And a lot of the audit coordinators are female. And so they tell me that I make them talk about things that they wouldn't otherwise talk about. So we'll have our audit team meeting every Monday morning, and I'll ask things like, man, I am really feeling that imposter syndrome today. Is anybody else feeling that? And first thing that happens is all the guys go like that. Are we talking about imposter syndrome right now? Yes, we're talking about imposter syndrome right now, and here's why I'm feeling it. And then they start talking about it, where they may never, ever have talked about feeling those things before. So it's not that the people in your, especially the men on your team, the more experienced, individuals of any kind on your team, it's not that they don't feel it, they just might not talk about it, all right? So imposter syndrome hits us all. And it's going to hit you as a QSA because we all have to go in and assess somebody else's work. Looking at technologies we may never have implemented ourselves. Looking at systems we don't own, we don't have a lot of insight into. Talking to people who are probably mad at you to begin with because they're feeling judged, right? You're going in there as a judge of their work. And then they might feel like kind of defensive of that. And so then it kind of can create some things. Of course, you're going to feel imposter syndrome when you get stuck in that situation. Thing is, we have this great thing. It's that you can search the internet and find answers to anything. So anytime you run up against something that you don't know, you have the ability to go search it out. So these are the conversations that I bring to my fellow auditors all the time. I don't know this thing. Has anybody else dealt with this? How have you dealt with it? And there are a couple of straight up, they're just jerks. Couple of straight up jerks on the team who want to prove that they're smarter than everybody else. And so they make us all feel small. And that happens in every organization, in every group that you're going to deal with. No matter who you are, no matter what level of experience, no matter what gender you are, you're going to get targeted for, you get to feel small because I actually don't feel very good about myself. And so I'm going to make other people around me feel small by hitting their confidence buttons. All right. It's nonsense and we all have to deal with it. But if you just recognize that it's not going to hurt you, and if it does hurt you, find a different job, then you can go on and not really take to heart some of these moments of insecurity, right? So how does this deal with this particular slide? Got to promote yourself. And the way to promote yourself is to know what you're capable of, know what you've done, excuse me, know what your experience is, know what tests you've passed can actually give you a boost in that feeling of powerfulness in your job. Go write those down. Have a resume that is going all the time that you can go back to and say, wait, who said that I could have this job? Oh yeah. Oh, I did this thing. I accomplished this at this company. I worked with this group to solve their problem in this way. And then that is like a personal chat sheet that you can use then to promote yourself when you want your company to pay for your certifications. Here's what I've done. Here is my next step. Here's how it values you. And then it makes it easier for other people to take that on and give you the advancements that you need to get to where you want to be, but you have to promote yourself. I get that it's hard. Sometimes my oldest daughter, and I'm sorry we're staying on this, thanks, Diane. I'm sorry we're staying on this particular slide a lot, but look, there's a lot of, I don't know what they are, ibises or whatever. Here's something that gives me insight into how we get past anxiety over talking about ourselves. My oldest daughter is on the autism spectrum. So talking to other people, super hard at the best of times. And then she decided that she was going to be a show promoter. This means she has to talk to people and convinces them of things. And the way she does it is she writes out her scripts. She goes and says, this is what I know. This is the goal that I'm trying to accomplish. These are the words that I'm going to use. I'm going to practice these things. And then she takes the notes and goes and speaks to people. And when she gets stuck, you know what she does? She pulls the folded up notes out of her pocket and says, I'm having an autism brain moment. I need to get refocused on this. Just a minute. Pulls it out, reads it to them, and they go, oh, you know what? Same, because a lot of us struggle with those moments of how do we say what we need to say so that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish, all right? All of this is to say, promote yourself. It's okay to promote yourself, but you need to be prepared to do it. Otherwise, it just gets uncomfortable and then, we walk away with the uncomfortable. I'm going to leave awkwardly now. Thanks. Okay. So here's the next thing that I should have had a transition slide here, but I didn't. Bam, here's a sudden new topic. Okay, a lot of people say, how do I get these intermediate jobs? How do I get these next step jobs to gain the knowledge that fills the the holes in that list that I'm making against these requirements. Here's how you do it. This Cyberseek thing is super cool. So it has an interactive map. You can go enter in and say, all right, I am in Texas. What are the jobs there that are appearing the most? Right, so the top cybersecurity job titles in Texas, when I did this screenshot, which was a minute ago, like last year, I think. Top one is cybersecurity engineer. What does that even mean? People name jobs the weirdest things. And then you have to go in and click on it, and then it takes you to the details of what these jobs are. It might suit you. And especially if it says junior, if you're like just beginning, or if it's something that is like IT auditor here at the end of it, that's probably an internal auditor. That is a great job to get if you feel like you have a lot of the boxes checked for these requirements, but you don't have maybe a lot of audit experience. Become an IT auditor internally to a company. You get to read all of the printouts, all of the assessments, all of the information about your own systems, where there's gaps, where there's security vulnerabilities, and then help them fix it. Or sometimes you just read it and go, hey, you got to get this done. When are you getting it done? And that feels rude, but it's kind of fun sometimes. So finding out what the jobs are and how they fit your gaps in your current knowledge, your current experience. This Cyberseek tool, super cool. I hope that you find it valuable. I sure did. Again, the link is at the end. Okay. So, oh my gosh, I ended 4 minutes early. Sorry. But I was really excited. I think I probably talked fast. So for the Q&A, I don't know if we bring people in for this, or if we, like, if you want to talk to me in person, we can do that, or you can ask me things in the chat, whatever you want, whatever you feel comfortable doing. What do you want to do? Yeah, actually, you could ask me anything, honestly. Seriously, including chickens. I could talk about chickens all day. But, oh, I know what I said I would talk about earlier. The hard things. Okay. One of the hardest things when you first start is you're like, holy cow, I'm supposed to go and talk to these guys and then write up a 200-page, that's the average. I had one that was 400 pages once, but don't get worried about that. Anyway, write up a report on their security stance. How do I do it? You know how you do it? You get the PCI DSS template, which everybody's supposed to use anyway. It's called a report on compliance, and you read the first thing, and it tells you exactly what they're supposed to do and exactly what you, an assessor, are supposed to review. And then you go, hey, I can line those things up, give me this info, and then you write about what you saw, just like you saw it, right? So it's not, honestly, it's this is not rocket scientist. Although my VP is a rocket scientist, this is not rocket science. So I need a question. You guys are making me feel bad that you're not asking questions. Oh, here we go. Oh, what do you think about getting the CRM? I love that idea. Risk management. We're being told that in 4.0, risk management, risk assessments is going to be much more foundational to PCI DSS 4.0 than it has been up until now. We're on PCI DSS 3.2.1. 4.0 is still in like referral for comments stage. But we already do know, because we have an insider on the group of people that's making the changes, and he told us not to tell anybody, but it's an open secret, risk assessments are going to be big in 4.0, okay? So if you understand risk, then it's going to be an important foundational thing for PCI. Here's the thing. I don't know if you guys know, who's the guy that does threat model? Adam Shostak. He does this threat modeling thing. And I had such a great time talking to him the other day, because the way I approach assessments may not be the way a lot of assessors do. A lot of them take the checklist and they go down the checklist because they don't have a solid understanding of how systems work together, how do they talk to each other, what the networking is, and they don't understand risk. So if you take risk and apply it to the different things you're looking at, you're going to know to what depth do I need to investigate the security control. absolutely go get your CRN. Okay. Jillian, you should get your CISA because, and I'll bet that you have the ability to qualify for it, because if you have the CISSP, many of those domains transfer right over to the CISA. Think about it like your best friend is telling you what applies. So if you're like, don't have the qualifications, either get someone else to look at your resume, look at your experience and help you find it, or do it yourself. Be your own best friend and be like, okay, I'm gonna get a little distance from myself here. And if I were your advisor, as your friend, what would I say you actually qualify for? So how can you get that outside your current position if you want to? If your current position will let you do some auditing work inside the company, totally do it. See if they'll let you add that as part of your work, right? If they won't, do you work with a nonprofit or some other organization that would let you be an intern at the organization? You can be an unpaid intern at a nonprofit that doing very specific work and gain knowledge that way. You just have to make sure they're willing to do the documentation for you. Okay, so studying for the CRISC cert. I don't have that one. So I don't know, and a lot of, okay, let's maybe back up and talk about are certs in general worth it? What can they do? What can they do for you? What is that CRISC going to give you in terms of either knowledge that you need to do your job? That's one way to look at them. Or what can it prove to other people, right? So if you have this cert and you can prove to other people a year of knowledge using it, then of course it's going to be worth it, especially if you get someone else to pay for it. That's the other thing, is try not to pay for anything on your own that you can get your company to pay for. I believe in their ability to cough up some cash to pay for certifications for people who are valuable to them. Here's the thing, if you're not valuable to them, one of two things is true. Either you have not stepped up enough to prove your value in a way that makes them go, you bring to us something we want to honor with additional benefits like a certification, or they're never going to value you and you should find another organization. All right? It's all up to you. If you're working hard, if you're disciplined, if you're putting in the hours, if you're promoting yourself in a way that they can take on that information of why you're valuable, then they should pay for it. If you don't know how to do those things, role play it out. If they still won't, find another company. All right? All right. What else we got? Are you guys convinced you're going to totally come and do this job now? Aim for this as a career path? Let me tell you, this was not my intended career path, and I'll tell you how I got into it. I was in IT, and I was doing a lot of what's it called? Hang on, words are hard. Consulting. Where I did, because I like to have the freedom of, I don't like working at the same place all the time. And so I was doing a lot of consulting. So I had a lot of different companies that I was working with in consulting, but I happened to be not consulting when I got this phone call. I happened to be at our local zoo helping set up a rig for a circus performance. Long story, but that is part of what I do. So I get this phone call and I'm like, setting up the rig, and this person on the other end, and he's going, hey, I got the VPN to work and I was able to get to those files. And I went, whoa. Are you talking to the right Jen? And he stopped and he said, oh, Jen, this is Dustin. I'm like, Dustin that I got my master's degree with like 12 years ago? Honestly, I am not that organized to be able to keep everyone's name in my phone, but he did. And he launched right into, are you still in IT? Yes. Do you want to be in security? No. I didn't know that it was fun. I didn't know that it was cool, right? And he said, I think you should do it. And I said, I think you should call me in 2 weeks when I'm back from my other customer, and then we'll consider it. Because if you tell someone to call you back in 2 weeks, chances are good they will never call you again. Then you don't have to worry about it. He called back in 2 weeks, like to the hour, and said, come on up and meet my VP. We'll take you to Thai food. And who's going to turn that down? So sat down with them, had Thai food. And also, for those of us who have trouble with negotiations, I'm going to give you a tip on negotiating salary in just a second. Okay, so we sat down. They told me all the things that why this job was good. And I'm like, I am never working for a full-time company in a conservative state ever again. It has not worked well for me because I have this personality. And I can't change it. It's what it is. So they're like, but look at what we would pay you. And the VP pulled out a folded up paper. Folded up papers keep happening. He's like, you would start here at this number. When you got your certification, your PCI, when you passed your QSA exam, you would get this bump. When you reached your first 15 audits, you would get this bump. Everybody gets paid in this way. And I went, you mean you're not going to make me negotiate for my salary and then pay me less because I'm female? And he said, that would be illogical. And that's when I knew this is the company to work for. Because I think we've all been in a situation where they say to you, what are your salary requirements? Or what is your salary history? Word of warning, never tell someone your salary history. And if they push you for it, say, the past is not indicative of my future. We're going to talk about the value that I can bring to your company. That's the number we need to talk about. And I got headhunted recently, and the answer I gave them when they asked me that question was, I said, I want you to think about who my peers are going to be. And in a year, when I find out what my peers are making, I want you to make me an offer right now that's not going to piss me off in a year when I find out. And they laughed and said, fair enough. And then they gave me a very fair offer, which I ended up not taking because Security Metrics is the bomb. I'm not kidding you. But there is a lot of remote work out there with a lot of great companies, a lot of great QSA companies. And Jillian, here's how you find them. You go to PCI Security. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I'm going to go to that page now. Here we are, in case I tell you the wrong thing. You go to PCISecurityStandards.org. Oh, I was right. Good. And it'll give you a list of organizations that are QSA companies. You can also find them by going to job searches and putting in QSA, right? Or AQSA. So there's a lot of different ways that you can find the organizations that you're looking for. I wish that you could just print out a list of QSA companies. I wanted to do that the other day, and it doesn't let you. It's kind of slow and manual, but it's the information is there. Nancy, definitely, for sure, will be making this accessible. Let me go to the next page. LinkedIn. You can see me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of I post a lot of articles and a lot of blog posts, and I'm like, where do I put this? Especially if it's kind of like a speaking my own mind kind of article, I'll put it on LinkedIn rather than trying to force the poor marketing people at Security Metrics to put it up. Although I do a lot of blog posts for Security Metrics as well. The LinkedIn is where I'll put it, and I will put a link to, I'll post this up there. You'll be able to get all of this, okay? So back to the concept of wherever you are now and trying to gain the knowledge where you're at. If you're a little concerned about moving companies right now, think about it this way. If you, let's say you want more experience in IT audit, but there isn't really an opportunity for doing that at your company, ask them this. Do we have a company blog? Can I blog about it there? Would there be value in me doing that? Can I get maybe I don't know, $20 bump every time I write a or have a Amazon gift card every time I write a blog for the company? I'll bet you they'll say yes. And you know what else that gives you? A year of talking about audit in a paid position for your company. Right? So there's a lot of ways that you can gain this knowledge experience where you are that are perfectly valid that get you towards that goal. All right, Amber, thank you for posting that, my links there. I try to put stuff in Instagram too. Oh, did I mention I did mention the podcast. last year, the company said, hey, we need a host for the podcast and we'd really like someone technical. And everybody in the audit department went, not I. But, and I went, pick me, because there's so many cool people in the world that I want to talk to. And if I reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to be on the Security Metrics podcast? They're like, yeah, I will give you an hour of my time. And then I get to ask them all the questions that I want to know about whatever particular thing it is. All right. So I hope that you enjoy it as well. And I hope that you've enjoyed this meeting. We're at 5 minutes to. Are there any other questions before we wrap it up? Uncomfortable silence. Okay. I want to give you time to have a bio break before your next session. So I am going to wrap it up now. Super happy that you guys spent this time with me. I really appreciate and value your time. And chickens are the best, right, Lauren? So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day and have a lot of great talks. And don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I'm out here and I love talking to people about the work that I do and the possibility of you getting into it. So, all right, you take care and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.